The state of Texas is known for its size, Longhorn cattle, Dallas Cowboys, real cowboys, the Alamo, good steaks, oil, and George Bush. But what many Americans don't know is that the largest area of catastrophic drought is currently located in Texas. It is an angry red swath on the map, signifying what has been the driest year in the state's history. It has brought immense hardship to farmers and ranchers, and fed incessant wildfires as well as an enormous dust storm that blew through the western Texas city of Lubbock in the past month. To better understand this current drought, I dug in and researched to answer a few questions that I hope would help to bring more awareness about this issue. Natural variations in sea surface temperature in both the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans influence temperature and precipitation in Texas. Since the ocean temperatures affect atmospheric circulation, particular patterns of sea surface temperatures increase or decrease the risk of various weather events. These natural patterns occur in cycles, so their contribution to weather risk goes up and down over time, but would not contribute to long-term trends in any one direction. At the moment, warmer water conditions in the Pacific and Atlantic happen to both be contributing to the drought in Texas. Global warming could also present a new risk factor added on top of the natural ones that we already have. Although we don't know yet how global warming affects the risks of some types of weather events, there is strong evidence that it increases the risk of drought and wildfires in the western United States. Over time, natural cycles will decline, but global warming won't, and its contribution to this drought will only increase over time.
Here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, we saw some severe thunderstorms and even a couple of inches of rain overnight. That has helped the drought situation in this small part of Texas some, but most of this massive state hasn't seen any rain at all.
It's an epic dry spell. The drought is severe as it is widespread, stretching from Arizona across the southern U.S. all the way to Florida. Some areas, including much of Texas, literally burning.
Apocalypse. I've never seen anything like this in my life. Such a beautiful forest 2 days ago, and look at it now.
Multiple wildfires in southeast Texas have destroyed at least 55 homes and structures, burned more than 76,000 acres. The state is suffering its third worst drought in history, which is leading to lost crops and ranchers forced to sell off cattle herds because there's no grass in the pastures to eat. Along the Brazos River near Austin, there's barely enough water to float inner tubes.
It's about as low as I've seen it. I've been here since 1993.
Nearby lakes aren't faring any better. Lake Travis is 23 feet below normal. Officials say the lake is dropping 1 foot per week and causing dangerous conditions for boaters.
There's been a lot of one-boat accidents where the boats have run aground in shallow areas. We're seeing a lot of those this year, especially on point areas that are pretty shallow.
This drought is grinding away at increasingly fragile wildlife populations. Songbirds no longer have enough seeds and grain and are being forced to rely on food provided by people. Rabbits, squirrels, and other small mammals can't feed spring young, and that's having an ultimate effect on populations of predators such as foxes, bobcats, and coyotes. White-tailed deer, Texas's signature animal, are hurting too, just when spring fawns are at their most vulnerable. Adult deer are abandoning their young to keep themselves alive. The lack of natural food due to the drought is forcing more animals into road right-of-ways, urban green zones, and backyards. There's increasing contact between humans and animals, raising the risk of diseases such as rabies. Another problem that Texas wildlife is facing is that nocturnal animals such as foxes, skunks, and bats are coming out earlier because they have to range further and feed longer just to survive. This is also something that raises the risk of rabies. Since lakes and rivers are drying up as well, many fish have died due to the lack of water. Their bodies are being piled up in blood-red waters. The worst long-term effects of the drought will definitely manifest themselves in a degraded habitat. The Texas drought is having effects across the United States and even internationally, particularly in the food and agriculture sectors. Some of the furthest reaching effects may be on world cotton markets. Texas produces about 50% of U.S. cotton. Other Texas crops hurt by drought include peanuts, corn, and wheat. Rice crops will take a hit if the drought continues next year. The cattle industry is also reeling. Many Texas ranchers are selling off large parts of their herds as the grass dries out and water becomes scarce. The sell-off of cattle could push already high beef prices higher during the coming years. Economists at the Texas AgriLife Extension Service calculated in August that the drought's cost to Texas agriculture has reached $5.2 billion. The losses have only increased since then. All the state's water suppliers are required to submit drought contingency plans specific to their situations to the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. The plans map out what conditions trigger specific restrictions, most of which pertain to limits on days and times people can do outdoor watering. The limitations become more severe as a drought worsens, which has been the case since the fall. Unfortunately, long-term plans have failed to be put in place, even though city governments are taking matters into their own hands. Things have been difficult because our Governor Rick Perry has said he believes that global warming is a hoax.
I do agree that the science is not settled on this. The idea that we would put Americans' economy at jeopardy based on scientific theory that's not settled yet, to me is nonsense. I mean, and I tell somebody, I said, just because you have a group of scientists that have stood up and said, here is the fact, Galileo got outvoted for a spell. But the fact is, to put America's economic future in jeopardy, asking us to cut back in areas that would have monstrous economic impact on this country is not good economics, and I will suggest to you is not necessarily good science. Find out what the science truly is before you start putting the American economy in jeopardy.
Considering that global warming is just getting started, it is warmer temperatures in Texas that are extremely likely in the future. And based on temperatures in the first 11 years of the 21st century, those days are already here. The implication is that the risks of extreme heat and drought have already begun to rise and will continue to rise as long as global warming continues. As temperatures continue to increase, global warming's influence on the risks of extreme events will increase. If we want to avoid the escalation of these costs in the future, these risks must be analyzed, reduced, and managed, and the contribution of global warming must be factored in. The scariest thing about this drought is the fact that we don't know when it's going to end.